Welcome to the latest episode of Conference Chatter TV, where I pick every game in the Big 12 this college football season. And in Week 12 in the Big 12, we had some fascinating games with really exciting endings. And I'm here to reflect on the picks that I made in those games in the Big 12 this past season. I went 5-2 on the week, bringing my season mark to 70-20, picking Big 12 games this season at a 77.8% clip. So I'll go over a few of these games here that I missed and a few that I predicted correctly here in Week 12. Appreciate you guys checking out another episode and sticking with me this week. My name's Eric Sorrentino. I'm the KUSports.com Big 12 blogger, and I always start with the games that I miss, getting right to it here. The first one that I missed in Week 12 was Texas A&M 9, Nebraska 6. I thought the Huskers would win this one on the road, and they did not. And this was a really even game for the most part. When you look at total yards, passing yards, rushing yards, they were all relatively equal. Now, the two areas that Nebraska lost this game, to me, were both disciplinary categories. One, the Huskers had 16 penalties for 145 yards, as opposed to A&M, which only had 2 penalties for 10 yards. Nebraska also 2 turnovers, A&M 0 turnovers. So those were the two categories primarily where Nebraska lost this game. Now afterwards, Coach Bo Pelini and I'm sure Nebraska fans not pleased with the officiating of this game. Now, I got to admit, I usually don't like to blame the refs, and I don't know if I'm going to blame the refs in this game. I don't know if I'm going to take it that far. But that hit on Courtney Osborne in the fourth quarter on Ryan Tannehill was not a good call. It was a roughing the passer penalty that put A&M in position for a game-winning drive and a game-winning field goal, and it was just an awful call. I mean, he hit Tannehill as he was releasing the ball, and it wasn't that dirty a play at all, but he got flagged for it, and A&M kicked the game-winning field goal. Now, Pelini lit up into the refs. That was visible by the ABC cameras that caught him numerous times, exploding on the sidelines and lashing into the refs, his own players. I mean, he was pretty animated on Saturday night. But I don't know. I'm looking back at this game. It's not really like... So again, I understand the frustration of Huskers fans following that game, but it's not like Nebraska necessarily won this game either. I mean, Taylor Martinez, he injured his ankle again. He did not look nearly as mobile as in weeks past, did not look nearly as mobile as when he was escaping the pocket with ease early on in the season on those zone reads, and he just didn't find any room. And then when he was out, Cody Green, the backup quarterback, not effective. And so, Nebraska looked really bad on offense, only 142 rushing yards from the team that typically averages 269 yards on the ground. I thought Nebraska was going to have a lot more success running the ball than they did on Saturday night. And so they didn't run the ball particularly well, and they couldn't pass on a defense that was ranked in the bottom 10 in the country in pass defense entering the game. So, I understand the frustration, but Nebraska didn't play well. They didn't play well enough to win that game. I mean, that's from my vantage point, that's how I saw it. And plus, Nebraska wasn't playing for the BCS championship this year, let's be honest. I mean, so right now, Nebraska controls its own destiny. They still control their own destiny. And that is, they win next week against Colorado. They play in the Big 12 championship game. They represent the North with a chance to win the Big 12. So Nebraska still, on path to where I thought they'd be at the beginning of the year. I thought that they would win the North and play in the championship game, and they are still on that path. They just have to take care of business next week at home against Colorado. Speaking of which, that was the other game that I missed. It was Colorado 44, K-State 36. Now, I thought the Wildcats would win this game, and Rodney Stewart, the running back for the Buffaloes, give that guy the game ball. 34 carries, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was unbelievable. Cody Hawkins, the quarterback, 3 passing touchdowns, also a good game. But how about interim coach Brian Cabral for Colorado? He won his second straight game since taking over for Dan Hawkins who was fired it would be 2 weeks now. Cabral has done a magnificent job. Now, the final game, like I was talking about, at Nebraska, with bowl eligibility on the line for Colorado. This will be big. The Buffaloes surely will not be expected to win in Lincoln, but if they somehow pull off this upset, Cabral would have to move to the front of the list to be Colorado's next head coach. I don't care who's out there. Cabral, if he wins this next game, obviously I have nothing to do with Colorado and have no influence whatsoever, but Cabral should be at the top of the list if he wins next week. So those are the 2 games that I missed here. I had a couple correct here, had 5 correct. Let's get to a couple of those. Oklahoma State, 48, Kansas 14. Like I said and predicted, the Cowboys offense, too much for Kansas. And let's focus on the South a little bit here, because also Oklahoma 53, Baylor 24. The Sooners proving on the road that they could win. That's a big, big game, because what this sets up, obviously, is a huge, huge game of bedlam next week. Oklahoma at Oklahoma State in Stillwater. College game day is going to be there. ESPN, 7 p.m. It's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere with Big 12 South implications on the line. Now, with A&M's victory, A&M's won 5 games in a row, and the Big 12 South standings look like this. Oklahoma State is 6-1, OU 5-2, Texas A&M 5-2. With bedlam next week, if Oklahoma State wins, the Cowboys control their own destiny. If they win, they're in the Big 12 title game. It's as simple as that. If Oklahoma wins, though, and Texas A&M wins, and it's a 3-way tie, that's another possibility, and it would go to whoever is ranked highest in the BCS standings if it goes to a 3-way tie. Now, A&M could lose at Texas, and OU could beat Oklahoma State, and the Sooners would be in the Big 12 championship game representing the South. So, couple of different possibilities for the last week in the Big 12. All of them are going to be drama-filled. This is going to be a really drama-filled final week in the Big 12. I can't wait to witness it. It's going to be awesome. So that's the situation in the South. 3 other games that I predicted correctly here in Week 12. It was Missouri 14, Iowa State 0. The Tigers proving again that their defense is taking a step from years in the past, and that's why they've only lost 2 games this year. Texas Tech 64, Weber State 21. Red Raiders, no problem there, along with Texas not having any problems holding off Florida, or beating Florida Atlantic pretty easily, 51-17. So that's my 5-2 week. It was an interesting week in the Big 12, but next week is really when the drama will begin in the Big 12, and it'll end there as well. In the final week, it's going to be some great games, and headlined by that Bedlam game. So, appreciate you guys checking out the latest episode of Conference Chatter TV. My name's Eric Sorrentino. I am out. I'll be back to make some picks in a huge, huge final week in the conference. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you next week.